Yeah, you would.
You guys good to go down there?
Totally.
Totally. Still have a minute.
I'm sorry?
You guys good?
I'm good.
We're good. Yeah.
Still have a minute. But look at everybody. Call to order this regular meeting of the Monument Board of Trustees, Monday, August 19th, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Hogan, would you take roll, please?
Mayor Wilson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
Here.
Trustee Bornstein.
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Here.
Trustee Koopman.
Here.
Trustee Romanello.
Yes.
Trustee Stevens.
Here.
Okay, before us we have a consent agenda. Is there any modifications or is a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have,
Second?
we have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein.
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
Trustee Koopman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
Yes.
Trustee Stevens.
Yes.
Trustee Romanello.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. First item on the agenda, recognitions. Mr. Thornish.
Good evening tonight, Board of Trustees. I'd like James Schubauer to come up. James Schubauer, who is our park foreman at this time, has been in this town and worked for this town for quite a few years. He's been an employee since 2010. He's hired as the park foreman and has since expanded his role as the park foreman by taking on additional duties and responsibilities that were delegated to him. Jim is a prime example of leadership in the department. He is the type of supervisor that leads by example. Some of the highlights of his career include being instrumental in planning for each year's park projects, tree purchases and installation, the master tree trimmer, and assisting the landscape supervisor with landscape projects. But one of his more experienced facets of his career is he's one of our more experienced snowplow operators. He's the guy you usually see out in the grader when the snow gets really thick. He's often there to provide training and knowledge on operating all the heavy equipment that we use during the winter season. Jim is often there to lend a hand even when our water department has a water main break. He's one of the more experienced guys when it comes to assisting when we have those type of events. He also assists with stormwater issues, which we'll talk about later tonight. Very instrumental in his experience and knowledge in all those areas. Jim is one of the best at what he does, and he's a fine example of leadership. His crew looks up to him for guidance and support with the projects that they are tasked with. Jim's attitude is also to be commended, as it is very hard to catch him upset or mad about anything. He either gives you the look he's giving you now, or he's laughing, no matter what you tell him. As a point man for all our burials in the town cemetery, he has to be very precise in his work and willing to go the extra mile to make sure things are laid out correctly and ready for any last minute issues, which inevitably always come up. Jim is the kind of guy who helps you when you have a problem without being asked. I consider Jim to be one of our best assets here in the town of Monument and look forward to many more years of his work ethics and great attitude to help this department move forward. Can we all give Jim Schubauer a round of applause? Jim is our June 2019 Employee of the Month. is what we're recognizing him for tonight.
Good
job, buddy.
Oh, Jim.
One thing that I noticed about Jim when I first got here is he's always smiling, he's always in a good mood, but he gets the job done. This guy gets out there and works his tail off all the time, planting trees, special events. That's one thing that I've seen him at. You know, taking tables, putting them up, setting up everything, putting up a fence, all kinds of stuff. So Christmas lights, yeah. Christmas lights, yeah. So great job. We really appreciate you. Thank you for everything you do for us.
Ms. Hogan.
Will you come on up, please? Those are big shoes to fill. I'd like to recognize Tina Erickson as the Town of Monuments Employee of the Month for July. Tina has worked for the town for the last 3 years as an administrative assistant. Tina provides customer service at our front desk as well as support for all town staff. On top of her day-to-day duties, Tina has been doing an excellent job helping me with various projects. She has become acquainted with the record-keeping and interment process at the Monument Cemetery and has been assisting residents in need of those services when I'm not readily available. Tina is an integral part of the business licensing program. She has been doing a great job ensuring compliance with licensing requirements and collecting the required information on renewal applications. She has also developed and posted to our website a spreadsheet of all currently licensed businesses within the town. Tina has also been working on uploading all town ordinances and resolutions to a searchable database on our website. Thank you, Tina, for all your hard work.
One thing we had to do this time, we had to give out 2 because we skipped a meeting. But Tina, we really appreciate everything you do. If you come to town hall, one of the first faces you see is Tina's, and she's always smiling and she's always welcoming me. And that's what we look for in our employees. We want everybody to have good customer service and provide you with that friendly face when you walk up and you have questions for us. So Tina's one of the first faces you see, and we really appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Takes us to presentations. With Lewis Palmer School District 38, Dr. Summers.
Oh, thank you. Good evening. Thank you for, can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. So I appreciate the opportunity for some time to acquaint myself with you all and vice versa. And wanted to, first and foremost, just recognize the great welcome that has been demonstrated during my transition. So including visits with Mayor Wilson, Mike Foreman, and several other members of our community. It's been great to get to know many of you and looking forward to more connections along the way. I'm in day 50 of this transition. So as one of our board members here tonight, I'd like to acknowledge Chris Taylor. Keeps me honest. He's like, where are you at with your entry plan? Because I'm about halfway through right now, and it's going very fast, and there's a fire hose, of course, that's fully on. So I wanted to just share with you a few things about what you can expect from District 38 as we go forward this year. And that's me. Casey. I'm a Colorado native. Just a little bit about myself. Grew up in the Pikes Peak region. Graduated from Palmer High School. This is my 19th year in public education and 13 years in administration. So very honored, very humbled to be part of a great organization that we have here in Lewis Palmer School District 38. As you may already know, this was our first day of school today. So we welcome close to 7,000 students. And it was a fantastic day, minus a few glitches along the way, but we're smoothing those out and really excited about just an awesome year that we have planned ahead. One of the things that I am prioritizing as part of my entry plan is a listening and learning tour. And really the focal point of all of that is just getting to know as much as I can about everything that I can. We started in July with 6 sessions. We're fortunate to have 75 attendees at different locations across the town. There were 3 questions that are being posed through this listening and learning tour, specifically with the community engagement as a priority. So we want to learn about our values in District 38, some of the challenges that we're currently facing, and then just any advice. And I'll take solicited or unsolicited, whatever people have for me. I'll highlight just a few of those notes that we can organize around themes. So in terms of the values about D38, positive student learning experiences, dedicated and talented teachers and staff, parent involvement and family support, community involvement, and the value of education. We have students that leave District 38 well prepared for future success. Our overall performance in the district and the quality of education is top notch. It's one of the top rated school districts each and every year. And then most recently, we were recognized by an outside article that just recognized the value that we have with property values and our median household income, which is one of the most affluent in the state, which is reinforced by the strong educational system that we have. We focus on whole child development. We provide flexibility and choice, including our charter school option and prioritizing programs that meet the needs of all of our learners. And we're dedicated to open dialogue, communication, and transparency. I'll briefly address some of the challenges without going into a ton of detail here this evening. But one of the things that is going to continue to be a challenge is meeting the needs of our diverse student population. We know that we have population growth, and so the impact on that growth in terms of how we think about future school needs, overcrowding in schools, increasing class sizes, et cetera. Facilities utilization has been an ongoing issue, so something that we're going to continue to need to look very closely at. Sometimes communication, it can be both a strength and a struggle. And so how do we make sure that we are inviting feedback as well as providing the right information and the right means to ensure our community is informed. Fiscal responsibility, of course, always a big one. Staff retention and morale. And as we think about the growing needs of safety, security, and mental health of our students, how do we make sure that we're meeting those needs in a environment with declining resources? And then how do we also make sure that we're prioritizing civil conversations and respect with each other? So those are several challenges that were mentioned, and then just a lot of great advice that I've been able to solicit along the way. Being accessible and visible, which I intend to be as many places as I can, as much as I can. Making sure that we are meeting the needs of all of our teachers and our support staff, and really making sure that there is a culture of a one and an all. And our first slide, I kind of skipped over it just briefly, had a one team, our team symbol. I'll just briefly rewind that so you can see this is our slogan and our motto this year. So when we think about how we come together as one team and how we function as our team, making sure that everyone understands that they have a valued contribution that they make to the success of our organization, and that includes not just internal stakeholders, but of course external stakeholders as we develop those strong partnerships and continue to nurture them going forward. A few other things: trust, truth, transparency, absolutely. Have a hard skin, I've been told, and make sure that we are continuously working on building and bridging our community together. And so that will take us to some of our successes, which I alluded to just in the values. Again, we are consistently a district that is accredited with distinction. We have numerous accolades, both in the academic achievement realm, as well as extracurricular performance, numerous state championships, of course, both athletically, as well as students who compete in national chess championships, and our barobotics team, who's performed extremely well as well on a national stage, and one of the best music programs as well. And those are just to name a few. And I also alluded to the value of our community partners. So obviously, working very closely with our town of Monument, our Tri-Lakes Chamber, our Kiwanis Club, the YMCA, all the many programs that we have that ensure that we take care of our families, our kids, and continuing to nurture those as we go forward. So I wanted to just highlight a hot topic that you may already be hearing, and something that our board is considering. In fact, we will be going to vote next Monday at our own board meeting to approve the intention to place a single-purpose bond on our upcoming November 2019 ballot. This is a very high-level presentation, so just want to give you some of the high-level points, and then open it up to any questions that you might have. We are going to ask for a $28.985 million bond to build a new elementary school at the Bear Creek Elementary School site. So where those of you that have been here for some time know that that used to be a middle school. It was converted to Bear Creek Elementary School and has been functioning that way for about 10 years now. We are at a point with our overcapacity issues. Not sure what happened, okay. So in terms of continued growth that we're experiencing in our community, this is a projection over the next 5 years of approximately an additional 700 students, and over the next 10 years an additional 1,500 students, according to most recent projections. This also holds true with the past 5 to 10 years. We have experienced growth at about an 11% rate, so about 500 students that have joined District 38 since 2014. And all the way back to 2009, we have had close to 1,000 more students. So that trend continues in our community. Something that is unique about this bond structure, again being a single-purpose bond, is that we are terming this as cost neutral, or basically little to no tax increase. For the average homeowner of $400,000 value, you would actually see a 10% decline based on the way that the bond repayment structure is designed. You also have factors such as the Prairie Winds and Palmer Ridge High School bond debt, which is decreasing or sunsetting, expiring if you will, coupled with the increased assessed valuation of many area homes, which grows our tax base, and then with the 15-year repayment plan, essentially allows us to minimize any tax burden to our taxpayers. Interestingly, from a residential perspective, it is about 10% or 10 cents less, pardon me, for our businesses. Commercial, $400,000 average business, it would be about a $35 increase per month. So important to note those details. As I mentioned, this would be built on the land just west of Bear Creek Elementary School. In order to convert then the current elementary school back to a middle school, the costs would be covered by our capital reserves. So again, we are asking just for this single-purpose bond with the conversion factor for the middle school to be, again, covered by reserves. And that would be a 6-8 model that we would return to, thereby allowing us to have 2 middle schools to meet our middle school students' needs. Our who, as we talk about this, is all of us. It's about maintaining our stance as a strong school district, which yields higher home values, maintaining strong schools to serve our strong community, and of course, making sure that we are doing what's best for all of our kids, and that is our bottom line. And our why comes back to preparing all of our students for the successful futures that are in front of them. So as we start with the current class of 2032, that's the incoming kindergartners that started school this year. Maybe hard to believe, but for those of us that have had high school students graduate, you know how fast that can go. So appreciate the opportunity again to spend some time with you. I don't want to take too much of your time, but if there's any immediate questions, Mayor Wilson, if that's
Questions
okay.
from the board?
I just have one
Sir.
question, please, and thank you for what you do. Both my children went through the whole system, and they're doing very well.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
You made a comment as far as the average home of the 400K, and they'll see a 10% reduction.
10 cent.
10
Pardon
cents.
me.
I
10 cents.
apologize.
That's okay.
So what percentage relative to the Tri-Lakes as far as homeowners? Is that a 10%, 15%? And then what will those above that 400, what will their increase be? I know you mentioned business, but what would the residential be?
That's a great question, and rather than me spout a number that I wouldn't feel completely confident in, is if it's okay for me to follow up with a spreadsheet that could break that down in more detail, I'm
that'd be
happy to
fine.
send that to you to make sure that you have a sense of what those real numbers would be.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure, absolutely.
Other
Great
questions from the board? Trustee Clark?
I'm wondering if I could have that also?
Sure.
And is it possible for, to receive this presentation?
Absolutely, yes.
I would love to see that, thank you.
Sure, sure.
Ms. Hogan, will you get that to us?
Well, I can certainly send the presentation. If you'd like to send the spreadsheet to me, I can forward that to the entirety of the
Great.
board.
I'll make sure to direct that to your attention.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? One question on the bond.
Sure.
You said the bond was just for that building of that school.
That's correct.
so you have the current funds to operate that school?
That is something that we are looking very closely at. It's a factor based on how school finance funding is received from the state in regards to the total number of students that we have enrolled. And that per pupil operating revenue, if you will, PPOR money, would be what we would be working with to address those needs. And then obviously there's a ripple effect in regards to some of the other projects that we've had to prioritize. For example, modular installation. Those of you that have maybe been out and about know that currently Bear Creek Elementary, Lewis Palmer Middle, and Ray Kilmer Elementary all currently have modulars that were installed over the summer to address, again, the capacity issues and some of the growth that we're experiencing. Well, that hopefully is a short-term cost that we would experience. So it would allow us to funnel money back into our general operating fund. But those are variables, of course, that we would have to closely consider with any potential passing. I will add one more thing. This is just a very high-level presentation, as I mentioned. I know our board is committing to engaging in more community meetings as the next several weeks unfold into the fall. And so we'll make sure to communicate those and invite the entire community to be a part of those. And if it's okay, if I can allow Mr. Taylor to comment on anything else maybe with your presence right here, just along those lines.
I would just add that it's important to recognize that even though we're building the one elementary school, by restoring Bear Creek to Creekside Middle School, it really alleviates the real major overcrowding that we have at the middle school level. And it also impacts every elementary school, because by bringing the 6th grade back into the 6 to 8 model in the middle school, every school is impacted. So even though it's for a single elementary, it impacts the entire district.
Well, thank you.
I just have one more question, Mr. Mayor. I'm just curious, because you've been here 60 days, what is your personal opinion, not the board's, relative to Grace Best? From a cost analysis, return on investment, does the district keep, do they liquidate?
It's a very complex issue. I am beginning to become as well versed in it as I possibly can, keeping in mind that we have years of data that has been acquired, studies, input from the community that have to be closely considered. What I will tell you just in terms of its current usage, we are, in my opinion, making the best utilization of the building currently, given the fact that we have some programs such as our Homeschool Enrichment Academy, our Transitions program for our students who have significant needs, as well as other programs that we support in the way that space is currently being utilized. I don't know that that is necessarily the long-term solution to the way the building could be most optimally utilized, but what I will say is that we would have to address how the impact of those programs would be factored into any future decision about where best to go with that building. So I think there's clearly a lot that we have on the plate to consider, and that would be something that we would want to make sure our board has input into, as well as continue conversations with the community to make sure that we're very thoughtful about where we go forward. I just became educated on the history of the building, which is I guess an Air Force barracks that was built in 1946. So the fact that it is over 70 years old, at least the original building itself, and then some of the addition that was added onto it, it's just a complex and interesting location. But again, I would iterate that I think we're getting maximum or best value out of it based on the limited conditions that we have to work with there. And then I will just add one more thing. I don't think it is a sustainable school model based on the 21st century learning environment and what we want, in terms of what's best for our kids. I do know that there's that notion that is presented. Why don't we just reconvert it back to a school? It would be extremely, it would be a huge cost to accomplish that, and I don't know that it really has anything sustainably that it could offer our kids in that regard. And so that's my main concern, obviously, is any decision that we make, how does that impact our students and their futures?
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Dr.
Thanks,
Summers.
thanks, Mayor Wilson.
Town attorney selection process. Mr. Bishop.
Mr. Mayor, trustees, it was just a little over a year ago that Mr. Foreman was here interviewing during that selection process, so it's almost a little funny to be back here in this position. You tasked us with kind of looking into the likelihood of hiring a full-time staff attorney. So looking at this, the purpose would be to increase access to legal assistant, direction through on-site full-time position, decrease response time for legal-related questions and direction, as well as decrease legal costs to the town of Monument. The method or process. The goal of this presentation is just to establish guidelines for a search or selection process that is approved by you. This obviously is not the process that is set in stone. I would like to accept all guidance and how you guys would like to see the process unfold as we move through it. We like to follow the same process almost that we followed for the interim town manager search moving forward, with some tweaks or any kind of input that you guys would have. Moving forward, we would of course post the town attorney position and have that posted for 30 days. We will post this on the town website, CML, Colorado Bar Association, and kind of the usual suspects of Indeed, Glassdoor, and Monster.com. After all this is done, similar to last time, all the resumes will be compiled and sent to you in a PDF format so that you can review every resume that is sent into the town. Good, bad, anything that comes in will be given to you for your consideration. After this, similar to last time, we did an online survey, which I actually thought worked very well for everybody. It was sent out anonymously to where you were able to rate the candidates based on how you felt they looked in the resume system. This was able to give us a general idea of who we wanted to interview based on the general consensus and votes that were given by the Board of Trustees. After this, we did a similar move with this where we had the interview questions that were posed to the Board of Trustees, and you're allowed to give input on those. We would probably have to streamline this process a little bit more. It was conflicting on some accounts as to which questions we wanted to ask through the interview process, so we need to kind of look at this as we move forward. After that, similar to Mr. Foreman, we will arrange an interview process at the next board meeting after we have decided upon the candidates to be interviewed and the questions to be posed during those interviews. After that, which will be a change, we'll create a post-interview online rating system to rate the interviewed candidates this time. It'll be similar to rating them for the interview selection, where you will rate them on a scale from 1 to 10. We will take the top ones, and this information will be presented to the board, not as a final decision, but just to let you know which way the board is leaning in the process. And that is pretty much it as we move forward with the selection process going on. Process is not all-inclusive, just a framework. I will take any input that you have to streamline it or make it look like a process that the board would like.
Questions?
Everything moving forward will be put into place after a given direction from the board.
Okay.
Any questions?
Questions or comments from the board? Trustee Clark.
I do have a couple.
Please.
I would like to know if we could include the vetting of the information on the actual resumes, where we call and make inquiry as to verification of employment, et cetera, and including social media sources. And I didn't really respect that online survey at all.
Okay.
And I would need a more professional format for selection in order to feel more comfortable with that process. Those are my 2 comments.
Other comments from the board? Trustee Cooper.
Yes, sir. Just chime in that I would ask for inclusion of the entire board through every step of the notification process. I know we had some concerns that came up last time as far as there wasn't full board involvement or communication through the entire process. So making sure we're all getting the same information at the same time and making sure there's no communication happening behind the scenes that the full board isn't aware of and or directing. And then certainly we'd want to figure out what we're thinking salary-wise. I don't think we've had that conversation yet. I think we've talked range, but I think that'd probably be critical to come up with at least a ballpark before we start posting. Okay. So I don't know if we want to do that today or cheaper than what we're spending on a per hour basis, but probably reasonable given the complexities of the position.
if the board agrees, will you send us what the current salary range is going for?
Yeah.
for something
Absolutely,
like
I'll
that?
send you the current CML salary range as well as a job description for you to look over and make any changes.
Great.
I think, Mr. Bishop, just a comment, not a question, and I don't recall the description prior a year, 2 years ago, but I think maybe if we, as a board, can be a little bit more specific regarding working for a municipality, working with PD, Public Works, and setting timelines, so then we know somebody's coming in with that expertise. And I think that'll filter down the amount of resumes possibly we get. So I think that could be benefit to all the departments and the town.
Absolutely.
Any further comments for Mr. Bishop? Okay, thank you, Mr. Bishop.
Mr. Mayor.
June financial report, Mr. Winger.
Good evening, Board. Obviously, you've had the report in your packet to review, so I'll not go too much in there based on the amount of things you have in front of you tonight, but just to say that we are trending ahead in our revenues, a few expenditures as well, but we'll probably have to come back to you in the next month or so to talk about restatement of the budget and those items that we might need to look at. The comforting part is that we have increased our revenues quite a bit through sales taxes in several other areas, so I think that'll help us in that process and knowing that we're on task with the bottom line being appropriate. So the only other thing I might bring up tonight is I just finished up the June sales tax report that I'll get posted out. And for June, we were up 13% for the month, which continues our trend of being 14% up for the year. So it was a very good month for us in June, and like I said, I'll get that back out to you guys sooner, or tomorrow, I should say. Questions though on the report?
Questions from the board?
I just have one question related to the 2019 expenditures. I see the spike in March of 2019. Do you know what that's from?
March of which year? I'm sorry.
2019.
Let me get there, sorry.
It's looks like over a couple $100,000.
That was for a lot of equipment that we bought. We did our capital expenditure, so we started buying our trucks and vehicles like that, so that would have been in there
Okay.
as well. So our funding went up as well because we got our lease proceeds. So that would be the start of those expenditures that we had.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Trustee Clark?
I would like to thank you again for the hard work and the wonderful reporting and the logical assessment that you provide to the board. It's wonderful to read through. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Winger.
Thank you.
2018 audit, Mr. Logan. Is he gonna hand those out now? Did you want them handed out?
If you will, I think they're part of your packet,
There,
are they?
Oh, I'll take
If you
one.
want them.
but we'll take.
Okay. Well, as Bill is handing out the financial statements, my name's Kyle Logan. I'm the owner of Logan and Associates, the town's independent auditors, and I'm here tonight to present the results of our audit of the town's financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2018. And so you have two documents in front of you. The bound document are the financial statements, and the other few-page document is what I refer to as a management letter. And so I'll go over both documents during my presentation. But I'll start off with to kind of give you an idea of our audit process, and in order to complete the financial statements, and then touch on some highlights and finish off with the management letter. So our audit process, we usually split it up into two phases. We do one phase usually in November or December, where we come out and look at internal controls of the town. We pick samples of checks that are written, payroll transactions, building permits, utility billings, and just verify that there's supporting documentation for every expenditure that's leaving the town and revenues that are coming in. And so then We also do some analytical processes comparing 2017 to 2018 to see if there's any unusual changes before the year end. And then our second phase is more of concentrating on the numbers that are in the document here, and also doing third-party confirmations. So for instance, sending confirmations out to your banks and financial institutions to see if the money that they confirm back to us is what's being reported in the accounting records. We also do a lot of analytical analysis, looking at numbers, talking with staff, making inquiries to say, okay, do these certain revenue amounts or these expenditure amounts or these assets or liability amounts make sense, have supporting documentation. And so through all that process, then that allows me to issue an opinion on the financial statements. And so all the numbers in this document, all the footnote disclosures in this document are responsibility of the town's management. Our responsibility as your independent auditors is to issue an opinion on the financial statements. And so the independent auditor's report that follows the table of contents, on page A at the very bottom, to me, of that two-page document, that is the most important paragraph in that document. And it's an unmodified opinion for the year ended December 31st, 2018. And what that means in layman's terms, that means it's a clean opinion. So that is the best that you can receive from an independent auditor. What that tells you as a board, that tells you that all the financial statement numbers in this document, all the footnote disclosures, are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles for a local government. So that tells you also that policies and procedures that have been put in place over the years are allowing your accounting system to provide financial information that's fairly stated, okay? The financial statements are primarily made up into 4 parts. Following the independent auditor's report is management's discussion and analysis, which is more of a narrative overview of what's happened over the past year. And then the financial statements include the government-wide financials on pages 1 and 2, and the fund financials on pages 3 through 9. And then following that are the footnotes to support the financial statements and the numbers in those documents that are required by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. Following the footnotes is the required supplementary information, and that is primarily your general fund budget and the 2A SD water fund budget as well. And then coming up at the very end are the supplementary and other information, which those are what we call your non-major funds that are not as significant. And so they are grouped in the back as non-major, and all the budgetary documents related to those documents, or to those funds. And then finally, the very last two-page document is the local highway finance report. That is required by state statute to be included in all municipal governmental audits. So some highlights. Looking at page 1 and page 2, the government-wide financials. So this presentation is what we call full accrual basis of accounting. It's very similar to the way a business would show its financial statements. And so on that page, there's 2 columns. One is the governmental activities and one is the business type activities. Business type activities, that's primarily your water fund. The governmental activities, that's your general fund and all your special revenue funds, okay? And so overall, total assets of the town at December 31st, 2018, approximately $26.2 million. Your liabilities are approximately $1.6 million, leaving a net position of around $23.6 million. And of that net position, that's basically your equity or the town's net worth. And of that, 3.4 million is unrestricted. So what that means is that there's no restrictions on that, those funds are available to carry forward into the next year. On page 2, statement of activities. This is primarily your income statement for both governmental and business type activities. So overall, you had about 10 million in revenues. Expenses were about 8.4 million, leaving a net income on a full accrual basis of 1.6 million. And that's split into the governmental activities of about 713,000 and your water fund activities or business type activities of 834,000. So that's a big change from a few years ago as far as the water fund, which we auditors, we like to see. So, so that kind of covers the government-wide. As far as the fund financial statements, pages 3 through 9, let's talk on page 3. This is your balance sheet. And so you can see there's three columns there, the general fund, the 2ASD water fund, and then all the non-major funds. And so your total assets of your governmental funds, or actually of your general fund, let's just look at that because that's your primary operations of your town. Your total assets approximately 2.5 million. Your liabilities to offset against those assets are approximately 902,000, leaving fund balance of about 706,000. And of that fund balance, it's there's about 474,000 that's unrestricted. So again, that's funds available in your general fund with no strings attached to them to carry forward into 2019. Okay. On page 5, this is basically the governmental funds income statement. And so again, all your governmental funds, total revenues were about 7.4 million with expenses of about 6.7 million, which is an increase of about 940,000 over 2017, or about 34% in the overall fund balance of all your governmental funds. One significant thing to point out there is that when we looked at all the taxes, sales taxes, property taxes, franchise, those taxes collected by the town, those increased about 400,000 over 2017. And the majority of that increase was in the 2A water ASD fund, which is primarily your sales tax. Okay. Expenditures overall went up about 230,000, so your expenditures went up less than what your revenues did, so that's always a good thing. And so that's kind of an overview of the governmental funds. And then on page 7 is the water fund. Balance sheet, statement of net position. Total assets there about 9.9 million. Your liabilities, 207,000, leaving a net position of about 9.7 million. But again, the majority of that is tied up in the infrastructure of your water system. And so you know, you always got to look at that as far as when evaluating the fund. And then on page 8, the income statement, you had net income of about 834,000, which I mentioned earlier. It's about a 9% increase over last year. Your revenues were about 178,000 higher, which is about 12%. Your expenses about 157,000 higher, or 11% increase. So revenues and expenses in the fund increased about the same percentage. One thing that was significant this year, your tap fees were about 310,000 higher than 2017. So, you know, that helps the water fund because those tap fees are coming in to help future, offset future capital needs of the water system. I won't go through the footnotes, but again, there's a lot of information there that supports these numbers in the financial statements. As you go through them, if you have any questions, please let me know. Before I go on to the management letter, any questions on the financial statements?
Questions from the board? Please continue, Mr. Logan.
Okay, so the next document, the management letter. So our professional standards as your independent auditors require certain things that we communicate to you, the governing board of the town. And that's what the purpose of this letter is. And so the first page there, that primarily tells you what our responsibilities are. And then the following, on page 2, talks about, you know, if there were significant estimates or significant changes in accounting policies, if we had any significant audit adjustments, if there were any consultations with other independent accountants. As far as I know, there were none. And then if we had any difficulties performing the audit, well, I'll tell you, if we did, you would have heard from me before tonight. So that's always a good sign. And then on page 3, kind of goes in, talks about disagreements with management. Those two kind of tie together. But this letter, the purpose of this letter also is to bring up issues that we as your auditors think are significant enough that although they're significant, they did not cause us to change our opinion on the financial statements. And so, as those of you who have been here for several years, you know different issues and comments we've brought up over the past years. And the fact that those comments are not showing up here again, that means they've been corrected. So that's always a good thing to report. So the only thing I have to report this year is about the traffic impact fee fund. And I know, you know, the fees are special fees from the growth of the town that are specific to be used for these purposes. And so, you know, this year we had another loss in that fund. You're using up the fund balance for the projects that are needing to be completed. Sometimes it's just a timing issue, but the fact is that over the past 2 years, the fund balance has gone down about 76%. So I feel it's important to bring that up, just for you guys to keep an eye on it. I know Bill and I have talked about it, and just to make sure that you're not getting to the point where all of a sudden, oops, that fund's in the red, and then, you know, you have to subsidize it with monies from other funds. So that's one reason I'm bringing that up now, just so that it can be on the radar to keep track of. And so finally, in conclusion, I want to thank Bill and Connie and Ms. Smith and Mr. Foreman for their help, because they have the hard part, especially Bill, since he wasn't here last year. So he was having to dig for information and try and answer questions of things that happened, you know, a year to 18 months ago. So we really appreciate his help in getting through this process this year. And it really made it a lot easier for us as far as finalizing everything and being here tonight.
Questions from the board?
Can you shed a little bit of clarification on your management letter, page 2, significant audit adjustments? Following lines are stated: we made adjustments to the town's accounting records in order to properly report certain assets, liabilities, revenues, and expenditures of the town. The nature and amounts of these audit adjustments made to the town's accounting records indicate a significant deficiency in the town's accounting and financial reporting. Of course, but we understand the town is in the process of making changes in the finance department, which should correct deficiency in financial reporting. What kind of deficiencies are we talking about, and do you have, I mean, is there a list of the adjustments made, things
Yes.
that we could possibly review?
Yeah, we provide, so just so you know, the way, before I make an audit adjustment, I discuss it with staff. I don't just come up and make audit adjustments without discussing them, because I don't want to misunderstand something or anything like that. And I know when we started the process, just because of the turnover in staff and there being some period of time without people here as far as keeping the financials and accounting records up to date on a consistent basis. So as we were going through that process, you know, we'd come across something either in the assets or liabilities that, hey, this doesn't look right. Well, as we dug into it, then we would say, okay, this amount needs to be adjusted. Now, the fact is that we didn't necessarily have any one transaction that was just totally way out of line or anything. It's just a combination of a lot of the adjustments. And so when we look at it from an independent standpoint, we say, okay, we're making adjustments to your records. Well, are the accumulation of all these adjustments material or significant enough that all of a sudden, are these numbers no longer management's, do they become mine? Now, that didn't happen because otherwise it would have been reflected as a material weakness, and you know, I may not have been able to issue an opinion on the financials. However, though, just some of this was just more of not having maybe staff not, Bill being new, not having the time to really go through and dig into stuff before we came in to do the audit. I'd say that's what the majority of it was.
How many adjustments do you think there were?
Overall, let's see, we had adjustments to primarily the general and water fund, okay? And then a few across, what we call across funds, meaning stuff needed to be in one fund and was inadvertently put in the wrong fund. And so I believe, let's see, looks like about 19 adjustments. So,
And again, you can provide those to us?
yeah,
Okay.
staff has them. So, definitely. Okay?
Additional questions from the board?
I had a question for our attorney, please. Understanding that this audit is a snapshot, as that you've shared over the years, and hypothetically, if there was a separate investigation, is there any liability to the board or any town personnel if we approve this audit and then at a later date, it could be challenged?
Generally speaking, so long as there's not willful or wanton or a standard like that, there is no liability attaches for public action. So basically, if you have good information, you acted reasonably, you should be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Clark?
I have a couple of questions, please. Can you tell me who exactly you worked with in the staff for this audit process?
Who exactly?
Yeah, do you have a list of people that you?
Trying to remember. Can't remember everybody's name because I can't remember all the names of my clients, but so worked with Bill, Mike, Mr. Tharnish. Trying to think. Early on, our preliminary work was with Ms. Smith. I know there were staff up in the Public Works Department that we worked with, all the accounting personnel. And again, forgive me, I don't remember everybody's name, but I believe we may have even spoke with a few, one or two, maybe the police chief early on. I know we spoke with Mr. Bishop in Human Resources.
So
And
after.
we also spoke with a few of you trustees, so.
So after your audit, did you see anything that would give you cause to have apprehension concerning the FBI and IRS investigation of our town financial records?
I cannot discuss that because of legal advice.
I see. Thank you very much.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Mr. Logan.
Thank you.
Resolutions. Resolution number 27-2019, a resolution authorizing the town manager to file the 2018 audit with the state authority. Mr. Wigner.
Okay, well, now it's been presented to you, obviously, a month ago or so, you approved an extension to get this filed with the state. So we need to get that done by the end of August, with our 60-day extension that we had received. So, at this point, that's what this resolution is authorizing you to, direct the town manager to get this report filed with the state auditor's office.
Okay. Any questions or motion from the board?
I have a question, I guess clarification, and it could be you, Mr. Wingert, or attorney possibly. What exactly is this board stating by submitting to the state this report? Given the information that I was just providing this management letter, there's approximately over a dozen adjustments that I would like to review to feel comfortable putting my stamp of approval on it, especially given those two particular funds. So what exactly are we stating? And I think that would be a tie-in to exactly what are we liable for if we've just been given information by the auditor that there were significant concerns, and we're approving this and submitting it to the state.
I'm gonna let him take that first.
Not a bad idea.
There are kind of, the easiest way to answer that question is that the statute identifies and sets forth the requirement that the town audit its finances and then share that auditing information with the state. And that's ultimately what this is about. That audit, the original audit deadline was early in the summer. The town contemplated and then approved an extension of that. So basically, in essence, there's a state law that says you have to do an audit and submit it, and that's what you're doing here.
Yeah, and I understand the obligation of us to submit the audit to the state. Where my question falls is, are we acknowledging that we agree with the audit, that we agree that it is true, that we hold the information presented as accurate? You said willful wanton. We're given red flags in this management letter saying there was significant deficiencies noted. I have not seen that information yet. So for me to willfully say, oh yeah, go ahead and submit it to the state, I would think that there would be a little bit of liability, or at least the risk of liability. Or is that not what we're saying? So that's what I'm saying. What are we doing by submitting it to the state?
I want to clarify though, and maybe you can answer this, because the disagreements with management part of this is saying that there isn't anything significant. You found some issues, but what this is saying is there wasn't anything significant. So what is significant? Let's define that. Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, as I mentioned early in my presentation, the opinions paragraph, you received a clean opinion.
Okay,
So that's what the state auditor looks for.
great.
And that's what you're doing when you're filing this. And the thing is, my license would be on the line if I'm issuing an opinion that's not accurate, or that I can't support that opinion. But in that management letter, you know, this is for you guys only. This doesn't go to the state. This doesn't go anywhere else. Now, because of open records law, you know, it is available to open records, but it is not for anybody else's purpose except the board and management of the town, which I state in the last paragraph. So even though I had those issues about those audit adjustments, once those adjustments were made, and, you know, we didn't have any malicious or any issues with those numbers being misstated incorrectly, I'm just bringing that up to let you know that, hey, we had to do this. And so again, I wouldn't be comfortable issuing an opinion on these financials if I felt that those adjustments were, you know, fraudulent or erroneous to correct something like that. I don't know if that helps clarify, Mr.
No,
Cooper.
great clarity. Thank
So-
you. Thank you so much.
Just a question, and again, knowing you for years, but I would make the assumption that this occurs every year and you work with staff and things just have to be tweaked.
Well,
Is that a fair
yeah,
assumption?
I will say, in all my years of auditing the town, we have had adjustments. And sometimes they're more, some years they're more significant than others. And again, like I mentioned earlier, I think because of just what's happened over the past, since the beginning of the year, just the fact of the accounting records being where they were when we came in to do the audit. That's the result of this.
Your professional opinion is 19 a little bit high, but to be fair, we've had transitions, and you have to accommodate, but is that a little bit high, or is that norm? I think that's the number you had mentioned earlier.
To be honest, to answer that honestly, I'd have to go back and look at prior years. Because I don't remember how many, we had for 2017 or 2016.
Well, I think that
So-
a big part of this too is not so much, numbers are important, but it's what is it, right?
Yeah.
I got something in the wrong column, but there's no, there's no
Yeah.
maleffect here, right? It's,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
gotta, yeah. Okay.
And that's part of, like I mentioned, that some things were in the wrong.
Wrong
bucket,
category.
wrong category.
Yeah.
And, from my standpoint, that if I don't say something like that in the management letter,
Yeah.
then someone may come up and say, well, you had all these adjustments to the records, you never said anything.
Now, in all fairness, though, I think this is my fourth one receiving from you. I don't ever recall you saying that indicates a significant deficiency in the town's accounting and financial reporting. And a statement like that doesn't seem like a wrong column type of scenario. So without understanding what those 19 adjustments are,
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable putting my name anywhere near this being being stamped as acceptable. My question was, what are we saying to the state when we file to them? Is this board saying we agree with what's being said there, or are we simply fulfilling our obligation to file a report? Also noting that obviously you made the adjustments. They very well may be correct now. I would imagine they are. I want to know.
Otherwise I would issue my opinion.
Exactly. I want to know what the 19 adjustments are to feel comfortable putting my name anywhere near it. My personal preference.
And this is due the end of this month.
I believe September 30th, or, I don't know what they said on your,
It was 60 days.
did they give you 60 days? Okay.
From?
July 31st.
Okay.
And I believe last year at this time, we went through the same process and we actually changed the language. It used to be that we approved and now we're no longer approving. We're just saying, let's get it there, because I
Let's
believe
file.
last year, we were in jeopardy of having our
Same thing.
taxes withheld
Yeah.
because we were not filing on time. So I believe it's critical that we file in a timely manner with the state. And if any additional information needs to come forth, then I'm sure we can get that information. But we're not approving it. It's not like we're the auditors.
We're filing.
We're just filing, and we're instructing the town manager or the treasurer, our acting treasurer to move the paperwork up to Denver or wherever.
Is that accurate, Mr. Rivera?
I think that my review of the statute is similar to that, is that basically you have fulfilled your statutory obligation by hiring an auditor and then submitting the report to the state.
Yeah, and that's what we're saying.
I move to approve resolution number 27-2019, a resolution authorizing the town manager to file a 2018 audit with the state auditor.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Kootman?
No.
Trustee Bornstein?
No.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes?
Trustee Clark?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Romanella?
Yes.
That motion passes 4-3.
And can we get a list of those adjustments, though?
Yeah. The
Bill,
town
Bill, you'll
staff
take care of
has-
that?
Thank you.
Resolution number 28-2019, a resolution awarding a contract to Martin Marietta. Mr. Tharnish.
Yes, resolution 28, which you have in front of you, is in your packet, should be the last of any road work we do related to asphalt paving. This contract here is for Martin Marietta to perform a series of paving patches in the Village Center Metro District area, which we've done a thorough assessment of. And the last page of that information that's in your packet actually lists all of the areas that will be adjusted to make the manholes even with the road. Because next year we're planning on doing some paving or chip sealing type projects, and the first step is you need to patch all your cracks, and you need to raise things to a level so that when you come through, it's a much more efficient operation. This Martin Marietta has done previous work for us. Dollar-wise, this contract is pretty small compared to the others that we've gone through. The contract is for $21,000, is well within the budget, and I'm here to answer any questions you have about this.
Questions from the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion or any other discussion?
I move to approve resolution number 28-2019, a resolution awarding contract to Martin Marietta for 2019 asphalt paving manhole patching project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes. That motion passes 7-0. Resolution number 29-2019, a resolution approving a contract for American Striping Company. Mr. Tharnish.
Yes, every year we try to get as many roads as we can for the lowest amount of money. And this year we set a goal of trying to keep our striping budget in the $30,000 range. We used a competitive governmental bid process, which is through our purchasing policy, allows us to get bids from other companies that have done previous work with special districts or other municipalities. We did get 3 bids. American Striping came in at the lowest bid, and you can see I gave you the range between $150 to $2,910, lower than, or excuse me, that were higher than this bid. This year we're going to use some epoxy striping, which tends to last a little longer. It's a little more expensive up front, but the longevity of that tends to last quite a bit longer. So I take any questions for this?
Questions from the board? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion or further comment.
Motion for resolution number 29-2019, a resolution that approves a contract for American Striping Company for the 2019 road striping project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0. Resolution number 30-2019, a resolution authorizing the use of funds from the Stormwater Fund, contingency funds, and general funds for an emergency stormwater culvert pipe replacement. Mr. Tharnish.
Yes, this resolution in front of you tonight has to do with some emergency repairs that occurred, I believe, I didn't write the date down, probably about a week and a half ago. We had a heavy rain event that caused some damage to Old Denver Road, right where one of our creeks is called No Name Creek, no pun intended, it's just the way it is on the maps. Don't ask me why. So the
I like the name.
what we discovered after that was within a day or two of that rain event, a crack appeared in Old Denver Road. And when the guys went out to check it, and they started putting a tape measure in to see how deep it was, and went down about 9 feet. What that told us is we had a huge void on the northbound lane of Old Denver Road. So we took some emergency action, shutting down the road. I believe I emailed you all on that action. And looked at a couple of different plans to do an immediate replacement, and then maybe the other thought was we'll rip open a section of the road and see how vast that void is. We know from previous inspections that culvert, the bottom of that culvert is completely gone. It's rusted through. It's an old metal pipe. I don't know when it was put in, quite a long time ago. So the thought process after we evaluated it in the morning after moving the pavement out of the way was to do some immediate repairs to try to get the road back open, and then formulate a plan which would give us a few more weeks to get a contractor on board and save us a lot of money, because if you say you have an emergency repair, to most contractors, you're gonna get emergency pricing. So we packed that northbound lane full of different size of riprap and material and compacted it at a lot of different layers. And then we actually had asphalt come in and we patched it instead of just leaving it as a dirt surface waiting for the more permanent repair. So the consensus among the staff here, our engineer tech and our street superintendent and town manager and me, was that we need to replace this pipe because we don't know the southbound lane, the condition. We know there's some voids there, they're not as severe, but it still left us in an emergency status. So the resolution you have in front of you, after talking to the town manager, we decided to try to appropriate about $100,000 I only have about, I think between 30 and 35 maybe in the stormwater fund. So we're gonna pull that from a couple of different funds. We were able to get 3 bids for that. Our bids are lower than 100,000, but what you're concerned about is once you open up the whole trench, you could find more erosion than you suspected. And I don't wanna have to come back to you a second time, like when we had the well problem where we didn't have enough and we had to come back and ask for more. I don't expect to use the complete 100,000, but that's what's in the resolution to affect this job. And as soon as we get the go-ahead on that, we'll schedule a time in the next week or two, depending on the contractor's schedule, to shut down that road again. This will be a one-day shutdown, probably early in the morning until the evening, but we think that whole pipe can get replaced within one day. So we'll set up detours, plenty of warning. We use our social media outlets to get the word out. Typically we let the police, fire, and the school district know, because that could affect bus routes and such. Any questions on this resolution?
Questions from the board?
I do have one. Do you think that there are, in your opinion, do you think that there are other issues like this currently happening throughout the town? Or is this just an anomaly?
I would not call it an anomaly. There are other culverts that we know are gonna be coming up in the near future. The next creek to the north side of that is Teach Out Creek, which is where the new Wagon Twist subdivision is going in. There are some minor issues with that, but again, that's on our short list. We have a couple of larger culverts on Mitchell Avenue, Dirty Woman Creek, where it passes under Mitchell Avenue is a rather large culvert. We're gonna need to do some kind of lining on that, which is a lot cheaper than having to replace. And then we have some issues on the Dirty Woman Creek culvert underneath Old Denver, right where Santa Fe Avenue and Old Denver come together. But again, those are most likely more along the lines of a culvert lining to extend the life than a full-time replacement. So we're tracking those as we speak.
So is it possible to put those on the schedule so that it doesn't become an urgent situation and we can be ahead of the curve instead of behind the curve like this for the safety of the citizens?
Or do you have to open up streets to do that?
Well, the problem is it goes back to the stormwater fund. Stormwater fund is very revenue limited. There's a small impact fee that comes from new development, but once that fee is paid, there's no revenue stream for that fund. That's why it barely moves up a little bit each year, and then we use 10, 15,000 to do a small project, and then we sit there until more development comes in. I know other cities beyond us have come up with different means, whether that's through a fee or a tax or some kind of special revenue fund that they develop to support those larger projects. But until we have a way to fund that, we're really limited on what we can do.
Can we get a special fund developed,
What we're
Mr.
doing is
Foreman?
During the budget process, you'll be given a lot of options to be able to fund. This is one of them. He's gonna be putting together numbers on that. We'll present that to you, and we'll have options to be able to fund that versus other things.
Great.
That's great, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Thornish.
Any other questions from the board? I just want to thank you, Tom, that your team was on top of this. I went
Yeah.
out and looked at it myself, and it could have been
Way
a very
worse.
bad situation and with people getting hurt driving through that when it collapses.
Well, I think it's very fortunate that we closed it, I believe, on a Thursday night.
Yep.
And Friday morning when we came in, barricades were moved. People were driving through there during the
Oh,
night
no.
at some point. Message boards were up, barricades were up, and
Gosh.
kind of lucky we didn't find a car. No
Halfway down it. If there's no further discussion, I'll take a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 30-2019, a resolution that authorizes the use of funding from the stormwater fund, contingency funds, and the general funds for an emergency stormwater culvert pipe replacement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Kootman?
Yes.
Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Tom. Resolution number 31-2019, a resolution appointing a Town of Monument representative to Colorado Municipal League's Policy Committee. Mr.
Thank you, Mayor.
Foreman.
Thank you, Mayor and the board. The Town of Monument has an opportunity to make appointments to the Colorado Municipal League's Policy Committee and determine whether or not your municipality will make any legislative or policy proposals for the committee to consider. The Policy Committee is an important part of the policy development process at Colorado Municipal League. Each member municipality of Colorado Municipal League is entitled to designate one representative to the League's Policy Committee. One alternate may also be designated, and that alternate should attend only if the appointed member is unable to attend. So at this time, I'd like to ask you to make two appointments, a normal representative and then an alternate representative. And those appointments can be either a board member, a staff member, or the town manager.
Okay,
I'd be interested in doing that.
okay. Is there any other interest in this committee?
Is there any staff, Mr. Foreman, that are interested?
None that have shown any interest in it right now. I know that I could do it. It's part of my job. You know, could go to CML and be there. So I could either be the appointee or the alternate.
This, to me, this is an important committee. Does this schedule meet your needs, Trustee Clark?
I can make it work.
Okay. And
You'll be
Mr.
the backup?
Foreman, same for you?
Definitely.
Does the board, would the board like to appoint Trustee Clark as the main appointee and town manager as the backup?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so this is a resolution. If there's no further discussion, motion, please.
Motion, resolution appointing Ms. Clark as a town monument representative to Colorado Municipal League's Policy Committee, along with town manager Mike Foreman as backup.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Kootman,
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein,
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Should I vote?
Yes.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Another quick question on that. I had not seen this in prior years.
We are not on the list. You know, that's why I got an email. I think you received an email. I think you, Laura, received an email. We weren't on the list. We have never had a representative until this year.
Is that because we weren't on the list?
Yeah, I think so. I believe it's because we weren't on the
Well,
list.
You don't
They
hear
sent
about
us
it
their
because you're not on the
information.
list.
Yeah, we get everything until this, so
Okay.
thought it was important y'all make a decision on this.
Well, thank you for doing that.
You bet.
Public comments. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone in the public that would like to make a comment? Yes, ma'am. Please. Please sign in up there if you would.
Okay, good evening. My name is Amy Schertzer. I'm a resident of Monument for the last 4 years, and I was happy to see Dr. Summers on the agenda for tonight's meeting. So on the heels of his presentation, I wanted to come and make a comment that I feel it's important for the town and the school district to have a strong partnership. This public schools are an integral part of this community, not only serving all the children that live here, but also employing hundreds of our residents as well. Our high-performing district is a source of pride for the entire town and is one of the factors that makes Monument a desirable place to live. It's one of the factors that drew my family to settle here as well. So as we continue to be a growing area, the school district must continue to thrive despite having their hands tied from many angles. Funding levels are dictated by state legislature. Fees from developers are dictated by town and county policy. Yet as we grow and more students move to the area, the onus is on the school district to continue to provide the high level of education that we're known for in D38 and that we've been recognized for here. But we also need to do that with adequate building space and with the level of quality that's expected from a top-ranked district like we have. So I ask that as the trustees of this town, you make a partnership with the school district a high priority. And I would also love to see a resolution from you indicating your support for our public school district in general, but also for the indicating support for the bond that's likely to go on the ballot that Dr. Summers talked about earlier tonight. The school is desperately needed to ease the overcrowding that we have at our one middle school and most of our elementary schools, all driven by the growth that we've had of over 500 students just in the last 5 years. And then as you saw, we have another 693 projected in the next 5 years. And so I just ask, like, do we really want to be a town that shows that we're okay with sticking our students in trailers? As you see, we have modulars at 3 of our schools right now. Do we want to be a town that's okay with teachers working in crowded classrooms and less than ideal workspaces? Do we want to risk the quality of D38 declining because this community doesn't value investing in education? We're far from the only area facing growth. Our neighbors to the north and south, Douglas County and D20, also have seen growth, but unlike our neighbors who passed, our Douglas County and D20 passed funding measures in the last year, and they're all getting state-of-the-art, top-notch facilities in both of our neighboring districts. So with your support, we can show that the town of Monument does indeed value education, and we're willing to invest in it.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Hogan, what happened to our timer?
It just doesn't want to work tonight. I apologize.
Okay. Other public comments?
Do we have a time? Couple of things. I made a public records request and found it very ironic that we had the auditor in saying how good the record keeping was and how things went swimmingly, even though we've been delayed by 60 days in submitting our reports. My objection basically is I asked for the community development grants. Those records weren't available. 2017 records were not available and may, I was told, be in storage somewhere, but they weren't sure. This included Madeline Vandenhoek, the finance department, and this is hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it alarms me that Ms. Vandenhoek has been appointed the EDC point of contact for the town when she is supposed to be responsible for these records and these funds, and we can't find them. The stuff is even on the town website. You can go and look and see so-and-so got this and so-and-so got that, but God forbid we have the check we issued or the application or what purpose it was for. So to say that the town has good record keeping is a joke. To say that we have processes in place is a joke. You can't even do these minor things. You can't do that. How are we gonna do the big things? I do understand we've had some turnover, but not with Madeline. She's been here quite a while. Funds going every which way, we don't know. We have accounting discrepancies and they're just brushed off that, oh, they went into a certain account or came out of an account that they shouldn't have. You need to look into this. This is how fraud and embezzlement happens. Little nibbles at a time. You take a couple million out, people are gonna notice. $500 to the chamber over and over and over again doesn't get a lot of notice. And I didn't hear anyone ask why all of a sudden we have money in the 2A water fund. Supposedly it was a bonanza this year. Well, why? I'm a risk and opportunity manager. You don't just look for the negatives, you also look at the positives. And if it's off normal, you ask the question, why? Is that because certain people aren't here anymore? It would be a good idea to ask. Thank you. Oh, one more thing. The Monument Indie Music
Thank you, Ms. Howe.
event was supposed to be here. It's now at the Mining Museum, but they're using the
Thank you,
word
Ms. Howe.
monument. It's not being held in Monument, has nothing to do with
Thank you,
Monument.
Ms. Howe.
And it's being held in Colorado Springs.
Any other comments? Sir?
So my name is Chris Taylor. I serve on the school board. I have been for 2 years. I got 2 more years under contract. I appreciate what you all do because it's an interesting job to provide oversight. The reason I wanted to make a comment is the following. We had a bond on the ballot for 2018, and I think we as a board and as the administration failed primarily because there was no pro statement in the Blue Book. And it's hard to win an election if you don't have a pro statement in the Blue Book. Before I was ever involved in the school district, I always read the Blue Book to determine my vote. So we failed, and I want to make that really clear. However, we learned from that failure, and we're trying to do the right thing now. Again, I think Dr. Summers described it pretty well. We have public comments that also described it well. I would love to see more partnership with the town of Monument. I'd also like to see a resolution that support us. To do that, though, I'd like to know what does that mean and how do we go about it. Further, I would love to have some town halls to open to the public to be able to come here and use this facility to have discussions where we could inform the public about why we're doing what we're doing, and we could listen to the other views and actually make this more open and transparent in a neutral ground. So that's my request to you. I'm not sure how to follow up. I will, though, individually with Mike Foreman, and that's our request. We would like to work with you. We obviously have vested interest, either as parents, grandparents, community members, taxpayers, etc. And I'd like to just open the door so that we might work together to make this an open, transparent process. Listen to all sides, because there's more than 2 sides in everything. And that's my request, essentially, rather than a statement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments?
I don't think the timer's working.
It's not.
The alarm, if you look up on the tab, it actually is counting the time, and the alarm will go off in 3 minutes. It
Thank
just
you. Thank you.
visually isn't working.
Should put my glasses on. Let's see.
It's a very small print there.
Good evening. Thanks for providing the opportunity for me to say, I have 4 things, 4 recommendations. Number 1, I'd like to ask the Board of Trustees, what is the vision and strategic plan for the future? I know we talk about water and keeping the small town feel, but what is the short-term and long-term goals that can be measured? They should be conveyed, shared, and posted online so everyone knows. An example is the need to review and update the 2017 comprehensive plan, because that's what everyone points to. It states that it's supposed to be reviewed. When was the last time it's been reviewed? Some of the things, some of the areas may be considered outdated, so I would like to put that on the list for a tasker for the board to take up. One of the things that I appreciate is the town ordinance is being reviewed. That's going to be an 18 to 24 month process, but that's something that I think is desperately needed. Something in conjunction with that I think that needs to go in with that is a transportation plan. El Paso County has one, but that's the big scope, the 60,000 foot level. Town of Monument needs a transportation plan. In the El Paso County, they're only talking about updating Highway 105. What are we doing with the rest of our roads? Town road should match town growth. That's what I believe in, smart growth. Example is Higbee Road. We need to work with El Paso County to try to get that fixed because we are growing homes out in that area. And there's going to be a problem here that's going to, when the rubber meets the road, of applications being applied and approving for those homes to be built with the Glen Eagle going out to Higbee. That leads into one of the reasons is when Promontory Point was first brought to the Board of Trustees back in early 2000, the Board of Trustees took an extremely long time debating about the emergency exit because there was only one road leaving. Classic came with 290 homes. They agreed to reduce that size to 260, and then it was approved because of the emergency access. Now we have Sanctuary Point being built, Home Place Ranch coming online. We still only have Glen Eagle. According to the El Paso County, Baptist Road is already considered saturated as of this day. So what's going to happen when they build all those homes on there without the extension to Glen Eagle? Implement and post an emergency response and evacuation plan for the community to help and maintain its awareness. I understand the committee is working on it. I appreciate that, but what is their timeline? Post that so the residents know. My big thing is, it's not if, it's when the next major emergency is going to happen. Plain and simple. We've had them in the past. Lastly, what I'd like to see is to provide peace of mind to the residents of the town of Monument on the west side of Highway 25. Have an agreement with Woodmore to be a secondary or a backup water source in case the west side of 25 has a problem with the piping. They have no backup right now. And that's an easy fix to enter an agreement with. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll go to town manager report. Does the board have any questions in regards to the town manager report? Did you have any highlights, Mr. Foreman?
No, I don't have any highlights. Just know that we're working on an economic development strategic plan still, and really working with TriView on that. They've been a great partnership in this during the couple of months we've been working on this, and we just had another meeting yesterday. One of the aspects of those meetings is we're starting to meet with some of the local developers and getting their input on what they'd like to see, and then also some of the things that we'd like to see there. And so I think you'll see a lot of partnerships going with not only TriView and us, but also TriView, us, and the developers coming forward.
Okay. Moving on to board authorization items. Budget workshop September 9th at 6 p.m. Does that work for the board?
Yep.
That is an off Monday from our usual, or from a meeting.
Works for me.
Oh, okay, it's Monday night.
Works for me.
Okay.
Do we have a meeting that night already?
No,
No.
that would be the in-between week. But our first September meeting's canceled for the holiday.
Okay, so I'll just make that the first.
That works
me.
for the board?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Colorado Department of Transportation GAP update. In our last GAP steering committee meeting, I asked them if they would be interested in coming and updating the board. Being that it's not a priority, I asked if the board would be interested in doing in October, having CDOT on the schedule to do a brief presentation.
Sure. I would love that.
Okay. Ms. Hogan, I will get you the contact information for the construction representative for CDOT.
Okay. Do you have a preference between the 7th or the 21st in October?
I would leave it to you guys to decide which meeting's more appropriate.
Okay.
Can I go back to the budget workshop?
Yes.
It says 6 p.m. What would be the end time of that?
Do we have an end time?
Whenever you want it to end.
Midnight. Or when you decide to walk out.
Yeah.
When we give up for the evening.
Yes, that's it.
Me? 5.
Yeah.
Jennifer Cunningham requests presentation of Circus du Monument funds to Monument Police Department on September 16th.
That has actually been, since this agenda was posted, I guess Jennifer's not gonna be available on September 16th, so she's asking to do that presentation on the 7th of October.
7th of
if
October?
possible. Yes.
Does the board have any qualms with that?
Nope.
Okay. Arts Month proclamation, September 16th, Ms. Hogan?
Andy Vick reached out to, for permission to see if he could get on the agenda for September 16th for the board to proclaim October as Arts Month. And he additionally asked for permission to give a brief presentation to the board. So those are two separate items.
Just a question I
Oh,
have.
those are- okay.
Will this be the same presentation he just recently did, or is this a new presentation?
This is a different presentation. I think you're thinking of Sky Hall.
Okay.
With,
My
art,
my
art
apologies.
views.
Okay.
And this is Andy Vick with Copper, which
Okay.
I can't for the life of me
It's
remember what that stands for.
Cultural Office
and-
of the Pikes Peak Region.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
So two separate issues.
Okay.
Please reiterate, because we've run into it before, that he has a time limit, not 2 time limits for
Yeah.
each item.
Okay, and both of them, I assume, are then authorized by the board?
Does the board have any
Sure.
qualms with those?
No. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board of Trustee comments. Trustee Clark?
I have a comment that I'd like all the Board of Trustees to consider. I've been inundated with residents that are asking if we will consider having a hospital in Monument. Several of the residents' health concerns are egregious, and they feel very strongly about actually having a hospital here in Monument. So I would just like us to consider that, possibly toss that idea around, and see what could possibly be done for that.
I would think that would be something we could bring to the Economic Development Committee and see if it's even possible. I don't know what goes into that.
That is one of the things that we do have on our agenda, is looking at medical facilities for the town of Monument.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Foreman.
You bet.
Additional board comments?
I just had some very brief comments. I got the opportunity last week, and if it was posted, maybe I missed it, but I know our police department worked with the Special Olympics down at the lake, and they had some kids down there, and it was incredibly successful, and it was just very nice, and they were catching some fish. The lake was packed, and I would only encourage that functions like this or anything, it's again, communication's the big secret. Just as a board member, I'm not getting any emails. So, but these are very important, because I think board members might have wanted to attend, or maybe not, but I think the public needs to know. So I give kudos for that. One other thing, and this is a food for thought for the board, looking long-term, obviously, you know, we're looking for a brand for Monument. I think we're being known now for the paddleboard capital of the Front Range. So it seems, by looking at Lake Monument and all the people that are coming. I don't know, as to generate some revenues to work for the lake and what have you, is maybe we investigate maybe a usage fee for people coming down, paddleboarding and what have you. It's getting busy. I think there's great value. There's improvements we want to do. So I think it's something maybe to talk about, because there's so many activities, projects we have going on, and we have limited revenue today. And then my final, and I think this is more directed towards the town manager, I'm just curious relative to the functions we have in the town, the vendors we have. I'd like to know what revenue this is generating. Are we making $100 a year? Are we making $5,000 a year? I mean, I know that the chamber sponsors things, we have various functions, and maybe it doesn't. But I'd be very interested to see what came in 2018 and what we've generated year-to-date 2019.
Actually, I had a meeting on that yesterday. Bill, me, and Madeline are working on that, so we'll
Yeah.
be able to get you something.
It's just a curiosity, because again, if we're utilizing our facilities and it's blocking out maybe from residents, is there some value that's equating itself?
Right.
And that's all I got.
Okay, any other comments from the board? I am curious, who was hosting who for fishing?
I'm sorry, the what for fishing?
Who was hosting who?
Yeah, they taught us a thing or two about fishing.
Thank you.
Very honest, very honest.
Mr. Foreman, in the past, before your time here, our town manager got with the superintendent on a regular basis to make sure that what our board was working on and their board were working on, we're working together. Can we pursue looking into something like that again, to where we kind of lost it through staff changes and everything?
Right.
And I think if the board agrees that we start that relationship up again between the town manager, the superintendent, and then you include us as needed for the prospective boards.
Yeah, me and Dr. Summers have actually had that conversation. We've met several times already, and we have a plan to be able to meet at least once a month.
Okay.
And then we'll update each board on some of our discussions.
And you will be forwarding us the stats that he'll be sending you per our request
Definitely.
at this meeting.
Definitely.
Excellent, thank you.
I have a question. When is TriView due to come back and present?
Or
I think we were talking about just a quarterly update at one point,
okay, on,
just kind of a information sharing.
okay. We can make sure that happens. I think one of their board members is here right now.
I think,
I heard nothing.
if you'll check with,
I'll check
Mr.
with Jim.
McGrady again.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
I believe him and, Mark did it last time,
Okay.
and it was just kind of what projects they had going on and where they were at with water projects, street projects.
Definitely, now's a good time because I know they can update us on Jackson Creek and everything like that.
Okay.
And just a comment, since TriView is here, the landscaping is looking awesome.
Thank you.
So kudos, you guys are doing an A+ job.
Thank you.
Couple other brief comments. Mr. Foreman, the comprehensive plan is on your list of upcoming items to
It
address.
is. It's that we're going to be presenting that to you at the budget.
I know we've discussed updating that and the need
Right.
for it.
I have about 6 different plans we need to update. You'll be presented those at the budget for opportunities to fund those.
And I know there's also been a discussion on the future of transportation.
Right,
and
exactly.
how- what that looks like.
A transportation plan.
Okay. Is there any other comments from the board? Seeing none, Trustee Romanello, would you make a motion for executive session?
Yes, sir.
Actually, may I interrupt? I have something I'd like the board to consider
Oh,
for a future meeting. It's related to the Willow Springs annexation. As part of the Willow Springs annexation, the town is obtaining the groundwater beneath the annex area. And as part of that, it's necessary for us to clarify the town's water right vis-a-vis a particular property owner, the Brady family. And so we'd like to bring to the board, I have permission to bring to the board at a future meeting, basically some deeds that clarify the respective parties' water rights.
Do you have a specific time that needs to be done, or?
I was hopeful of the the September meeting. I believe it's 9/16, but I don't know what the agenda is for that day.
Okay. I see no issues with it if it doesn't conflict with.
No, let's put it on.
Yep, let's put it on.
Let's put it on.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
I move to enter executive session to discuss, number 1, litigation between the town and Forest Lakes. Number 2, the town and Forest View Company. Both matters will be discussed under the following sections. Section 24-6-4024B, for the purpose of receiving legal advice from the town's attorney on specific legal questions related to litigation, and Section 24-6-4024E, to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators regarding the town's response to litigation between the town of Monument and Forest Lakes and the town of Monument and Forest View Company. I further move to adjourn the board meeting at the conclusion of executive session.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Hogan, will you take roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. We will take a 5-minute break and repeat and come back. Thank you. Mr. Kimple? Is it intentional that your voicemail is full?
Hey, how's it going? See ya.
Oh, maybe that's what it is.